In 1989, Batman, directed by Tim Burton, was released and became a cultural and box office phenomenon. Michael Keaton, who was initially deemed woefully miscast as Caped Crusader by millions of comic book fans, were won over by his multi-layered and charismatic performance. Critics praised the exaggerated performance of Jack Nicholson as the Joker, and cinema audiences were wowed by the film's dark spectacle and action. Even before the end of the year, Warner Brothers were keen for the same creative team to start working on a sequel as soon as possible. However, Tim Burton wasn't quite as enthusiastic about coming back, and assuring his involvement meant the studio would have to give him almost complete creative control, a decision that the studio would later come to regret. Batman Returns was directed by Tim Burton and starred Michael Keaton, Danny DeVito, Michelle Pfeiffer, and Christopher Walken. The story is set at Christmas in Gotham City, as a deformed and vengeful Oswald Cobblepot, also known as the Penguin, emerges from the sewers with a plan to take over the city, starts a campaign to run for mayor, and manipulates his way into the public's favour. Simultaneously, Selina Kyle, a timid secretary for the corrupt businessman Max Schreck, is transformed into the vengeful and agile Catwoman after surviving a murder attempt by Schreck. As Batman uncovers the Penguin's sinister plans to kidnap and kill Gotham's firstborn children, he also grapples with his complicated feelings for Selina, who as Catwoman becomes both an ally and an adversary. Tim Burton was initially reluctant to return to the director's chair. He felt constrained by the first film's requirements, and sought assurances that he would have more creative control over the sequel. Warner Brothers, recognizing Burton's unique vision as a critical component of the first film's success, agreed to grant him greater artistic freedom for Batman Returns. This decision proved pivotal. With more creative latitude, Burton envisioned a darker, more stylistically intense film. He aimed to explore complex themes and character psychology, aligning with his gothic aesthetic. This creative freedom allowed Burton to push the boundaries of the superhero genre, setting Batman Returns apart from his predecessor. Original Batman screenwriter Sam Hamm was initially brought back to write the script for the sequel. Hamm's approach was to retain much of the tone and style of the original film. He aimed to build on the foundation laid in the first film, continuing the story arcs of established characters while introducing new villains and plotlines. Hamm's drafts focus on maintaining the balance between action, drama, and the gothic atmosphere that characterized Burton's first foray into Gotham City. In Hamm's early treatments, the central plot revolved around District Attorney Harvey Dent, portrayed by Billy D. Williams in the first film, transforming into the psychotic villain Two-Face. However, the studio wanted the main villain to be the Penguin, as it was believed that the character was the most famous enemy of Batman after the Joker. Catwoman was later added, as both Hamm and Tim Burton were interested in the character. The Penguin, in Hamm's version, was a straightforward crime lord with a grandiose plan to wreak havoc on Gotham. He was depicted more traditionally as a mastermind criminal, rather than the grotesque, tragic figure portrayed by Danny DeVito in the final film. The Penguin's schemes were elaborate, but lacked the deeply personal and tragic backstory that Tim Burton wanted. Catwoman, in Hamm's treatment, was also a more conventional version of the character. She was portrayed as a cat burglar with a seductive and dangerous edge, but her psychological depth and the profound transformation from Selina Kyle to Catwoman were not as pronounced. Hamm's Catwoman was more aligned with the traditional femme fatale archetype, lacking the weird, magical-themed element under Burton's direction. Hamm's drafts also sought to further develop Bruce Wayne's character, exploring his dual identity and the toll it takes on him. However, this aspect was not as deeply intertwined with the new villain's stories as in the final script. Hamm's vision maintained a clear distinction between Batman's personal struggles and his battles against Gotham's criminal underworld, whereas Burton's version blurred these lines, creating a more psychologically complex narrative. Despite Hamm's efforts, Warner Brothers and Tim Burton decided to take the sequel in a different direction. Burton sought a darker, more stylistically intense film that delved deeper into the psychological aspects of its characters. Burton brought in Daniel Waters to write a new screenplay that aligned with his vision. Waters' script introduced more intricate character backstories and motivations, particularly for the Penguin and Catwoman, which resulted in a richer and more layered narrative. The decision to reject Hamm's treatments was driven by the desire to push the boundaries of the superhero genre, exploring themes of duality, identity, and tragedy. Burton's creative freedom allowed for a more avant-garde approach, ultimately leading to a film that was visually and thematically distinct from its predecessor. For the role of the film's main villain, the Penguin, several actors were considered, such as Marlon Brando, Dustin Hoffman, and Robert De Niro. However, Tim Burton ultimately chose to cast Danny DeVito. DeVito had a long career in film and TV, primarily in comedy. He became a huge star as part of the long-running comedy series Taxi, and later appeared in such films as Throw Mama from the Train, War of the Roses, and Twins, in which he co-starred with future Batman villain actor Arnold Schwarzenegger. Known for his versatility and ability to embody eccentric characters, DeVito was a natural fit for the role. His physicality, voice, and willingness to undergo extensive makeup and prosthetics made him an ideal candidate. Originally, Annette Bening was cast as Catwoman. However, due to her pregnancy, she had to withdraw from the role. Sean Young, who had lost out in the role of Vicky Vale in the first Batman film, was so determined to get the part, she showed up at the studio in a homemade Catwoman costume. Allegedly, Tim Burton hid under his desk to avoid meeting her, leaving producer Mark Canton to inform Young that she did not fit their vision for Catwoman. Michelle Pfeiffer was then cast. Pfeiffer also had been considered for Vicky Vale in the original, but was ultimately not chosen due to her previous romantic relationship with Michael Keaton. Pfeiffer was already an established actress known for her versatility and ability to convey emotional depth. Her previous roles in films like Scarface and The Fabulous Baker Boys showcased her range and intensity, making her an ideal choice for Catwoman. Pfeiffer trained for months in kickboxing and mastered the use of the whip, allowing her to perform all her own stunts with the weapon. To play the film's third main villain, Max Schreck, Christopher Walken was chosen to play the role. Walken, who won a Best Supporting Oscar for his role in The Deer Hunter, had become well known for playing villains in the likes of A View to a Kill and True Romance. Schreck, a corrupt and powerful businessman, was a character created specifically for the film, not drawn from the existing Batman comic universe. This allowed Walken to mold the character without the constraints of an existing backstory, making Schreck an embodiment of corporate greed and moral decay, fitting seamlessly into Burton's vision of Gotham. He based the appearance of his character of Schreck on Vincent Price, who incidentally had a cameo appearance in Tim Burton's previous film, Edward Scissorhands. Filming on Batman Returns commenced on September 3, 1991. Although the original Batman was filmed at Pinewood Studios in England, Burton felt he had been creatively stifled on the first film, and felt it suffered from a British subtext, and thus wanted to film Returns in the United States with American actors. Although the studio had kept the sets for the original film in storage for use in a possible sequel, he ultimately agreed with Burton to film Returns in America, as the economics of filming in England had changed, and it was more cost-effective to film in the United States. The production took place primarily on sound stages at Warner Brothers Studios in Burbank, California. Burton, his attempt to make Returns as an entirely different kind of film to Batman, hired his production designer Boal Welch from his just completed film Edward Scissorhands to design sets for Gotham City that appeared to be more fantastical and grounded in a surreal vision of urban decay. Gotham City was reimagined with towering buildings, narrow alleyways, and a pervasive sense of gloom. The design was heavily influenced by German Expressionism, which is evident in the angular lines and stark contrasts that define the cityscape. The Batcave was another significant set piece, expanded and more intricate than the first film. The cave featured an array of high-tech gadgets and vehicles, showcasing Batman's preparedness and resourcefulness. The Penguin's lair, set in an abandoned zoo, was equally impressive, combining elements of decay and opulence to reflect the character's tragic backstory and grotesque nature. The transformation of Danny DeVito into the Penguin was a remarkable feat of makeup and costume design. Stan Winston Studios created the prosthetics and makeup, which took several hours to apply each day. The result was a grotesque, yet sympathetic character, with DeVito's expressive performance bringing the Penguin's tragic backstory to life. To create the Penguin Army, the live penguins were supplemented with puppets, 40 Emperor Penguin suits worn by little people, and CGI. People for the ethical treatment of animals protested the use of real penguins, objecting to the birds being moved from their natural environment. PETA also objected to the penguins being fitted with appliances representing weapons and gadgets, which Warner Brothers said were lightweight plastic. Burton said that he did not like using real animals because he had an affinity for them, and ensured that the penguins were treated with care. The costume design, led by Bob Ringwood, was integral to the film's aesthetic. Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman costume, made of shiny black latex, became iconic for its sleek, stitched-together appearance, symbolizing the character's fractured psyche. Michelle Pfeiffer not only performed a lot of her own stunts, but took an extreme risk in filming a scene where her character puts a live bird in her mouth. She did this 5 times. According to Pfeiffer in several interviews since the film's release, she was foolish to do it, as she had not considered the extreme risk of injury or disease by putting a live bird in her mouth. The use of miniatures was particularly effective in scenes involving Batman's iconic Batmobile. The Batmobile itself, like in the previous movie, was a meticulously designed practical prop, but many of the dynamic driving sequences were achieved using scaled-down models. These models were filmed against detailed miniature cityscapes, creating the illusion of a sprawling, labyrinthine Gotham. One of the standout innovations in the film is the Bat Missile, a remarkable transformation of Batman's iconic Batmobile. This feature not only exemplifies the creative ingenuity behind the film's production, but also serves as a testament to Batman's resourcefulness and the advanced technology at his disposal. The transformation sequence was achieved through a mix of full-scale props and model work. A combination of real and miniature models was used to depict the shedding of the car's outer shell. On my recent rewatch, it occurred to me that this sequence may have inspired Christopher Nolan to create a similar scene in The Dark Knight 16 years later, where the Batmobile turns into the Batpod. The fight scenes, choreographed with precision, showcase Batman's physical prowess and agility. The Batsuit was redesigned from the first film to be more comfortable and less restrictive. These fights were performed by a combination of Michael Keaton, stunt doubles, and skilled stunt coordinators. The reliance on practical stunts rather than CGI added a tangible realism to the action, making the audience feel the impact of every punch and kick. While Batman Returns predominantly relied on practical effects, it also incorporated early CGI and optical effects to enhance certain scenes. The most notable use of CGI was in the creation of Batman's Batarang, which featured a sequence where it was programmed to fly and hit multiple targets. This scene combined practical effects with CGI to achieve the desired visual impact. The final shot of the movie with Catwoman silhouetted against the bat signal was a last-minute reshoot, after test audiences reacted well to Pfeiffer's character. This was done to make clear that Catwoman was not dead, and to leave the door open for a possible spin-off. Filming on Batman Returns ended on February 20th, 1992. Tim Burton's regular composer Danny Elfman returned once again to compose the music score of the film. Elfman approached the score with a desire to expand on the musical themes he had developed for the first Batman film, while introducing new elements to reflect the sequel's darker tone and more complex character arcs. In addition to his returning Batman theme, for the character of Catwoman, Elfman created music that is both seductive and tragic. Utilizing strings, harps, and whispering vocals, the music mirrors Selina Kyle's transformation into Catwoman, embodying her allure and inner turmoil. The theme fluctuates between moments of tender vulnerability and sharp, aggressive crescendos, much like Catwoman's own unpredictable nature. The Penguin's theme, on the other hand, is darker and more grotesque, using low brass, ominous choral arrangements, and dissonant harmonies to evoke the character's sinister and tragic backstory. Elfman's liberal use of choir makes this score sound like a mix of his original Batman score and his work on Edward Scissorhands. While overall, I greatly prefer his music for the original Batman film, his score for Batman Returns is a terrific piece of work, the album of which got a great expansion by La La Land Records, which unfortunately at the time of this recording is now sold out. One of the most prominent themes in Batman Returns is duality, particularly the dual nature of its main characters. Bruce Wayne, Batman, Selina Kyle, Catwoman, and Oswald Cobblepot, the Penguin, all embodied this theme, each grappling with their alter egos and the masks that they wear. Bruce Wayne's duality is a continuation from the first film, but Batman Returns delves deeper into his struggle to reconcile his public persona with his vigilante alter ego. Batman represents order and justice, but also darkness and vengeance. Batman may now be hero to the city of Gotham and officially sanctioned by the police, but he still kills several people in the film, calling into question whether he truly is a hero or just a vengeful vigilante. Selina Kyle's transformation to Catwoman is another exploration of duality. Initially portrayed as a meek and oppressed secretary, Selina's near-death experience and subsequent rebirth as Catwoman reveal her latent power and aggression. Her duality is visually represented through her makeshift costume, stitched together to symbolize her fractured psyche. Catwoman's character challenges traditional gender roles and explores themes of empowerment and liberation, albeit through a lens of vengeance and chaos.
I'm a woman and can't be taken for granted. Life's a bitch, now so am I.
The Penguin, or Oswald Cobblepot, epitomizes the theme of duality in a more grotesque and tragic manner. Abandoned at birth due to his deformities, Oswald's descent into villainy is fueled by his desire for acceptance and revenge. His aristocratic aspirations contrast sharply with his monstrous appearance and brutal actions. This duality highlights the societal rejection of those who are different and the potential for internal darkness to manifest externally. Alienation is a recurring theme in Batman Returns, affecting all of its central characters. Gotham City itself is depicted as a cold, oppressive environment, contributing to the character's sense of isolation. The Penguin's alienation is most apparent, having been cast out by his family and society due to his physical appearance. His attempt to integrate into society is ultimately a facade for his deeper need for revenge against those who shunned him. Selina Kyle's alienation stems from her marginalized role in a male-dominated corporate world. Her transformation to Catwoman is both a response to her personal trauma and a rebellion against societal expectations. However, her newfound power and independence also isolate her from the world she once knew, creating a tragic undertone to her character arc. Batman, despite being a hero, is also profoundly isolated. His role as Gotham's protector sets him apart from the society he defends. Bruce Wayne's wealth and status offer no solace from the loneliness he feels, highlighting the theme that true connection and understanding remain elusive, even for those with power and resources. Batman Returns also examines the corrupting influence of power. Max Schreck embodies corporate greed and corruption. His desire to build a power plant that would monopolize Gotham's energy supply is a metaphor for the destructive nature of unchecked ambition. Schreck's character serves as a reminder that the most dangerous villains are often those who operate within the confines of societal norms and wield their power without accountability. The Penguin's rise to power, manipulated by Schreck, also underscores the corrupting influence of power. Once in a position of authority, the Penguin's actions become increasingly ruthless and tyrannical, revealing the dark potential that lies within those who have been marginalized and oppressed. My personal thoughts on Batman Returns is that although it's an ambitious and unconventional follow-up to the first film, it's ultimately disappointing. Tim Burton claims he didn't have complete creative control in the first film, but I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. Many of Tim Burton's films can be described as odd and weird, and while I think he's a talented filmmaker with a great visual sense, he's not a particularly great storyteller, and also notably, not an action director. Having more creative control this time out, Burton seemed to have free rein to make this film really, really weird, complete with really weird characters. It's saying something that the most normal main character of this movie is the one who dresses up as a bat to fight crime. Burton has said in many interviews that he wanted Returns to be an altogether different film to the first. The result is that it doesn't seem to be even set in the same Gotham City as the original movie. While the Gotham we saw in Batman had some resemblance to reality and seemed packed full of people, the sets of Gotham in Returns feel just like that, movie sets. While the Christmas setting allows for a different atmosphere, and there is a unique design to production designer Bo Welch's sets, this Gotham feels very small. You can tell that despite the large budget this film received, there are obvious signs of cost cutting, such as the smaller crowd scenes. Seriously, many of the scenes set in the streets of Gotham are positively deserted. Where is everybody during Catwoman's bombing of the Shrek factory? Where is everybody while Batman searches for the kidnapped Ice Princess, which allows for the circus gang plenty of uninterrupted time to mess with the Batmobile? Speaking of the circus gang, it really shows up how ineffective Gotham's police force is that they can't handle these guys. On several occasions, this gang shows up to cause terror and there's no sign of the police? Don't they have SWAT teams? No wonder Batman is needed to save the city. And just how did these guys get blueprints for the Batmobile anyway? My biggest complaint, though, is that like many of the Batman films of the Burton-Schumacher era, there are just too many villains. Batman had one villain in the original film, the Joker. In Returns, he faces the Penguin, Catwoman, Max Schreck, and the Circus Gang. It's just too overcrowded, which leaves Batman often seeming like a side character in his own movie. Fun fact, in the first 40 minutes of this movie, Batman has one fight scene and has one line of dialogue.
Thanks for saving the day, Batman. I'm afraid the Circus Gang is back.
We'll see.
Although Tim Burton claims the contrary, I've often felt he wasn't particularly interested in the character of Batman, mainly his villains. What I do like, though, is that he remembers to portray Batman as a true hero, who doesn't lower himself to the same level of his villains, and never, ever kills anybody.
You sure about that?
Really, despite the temptation, Batman never kills anybody.
You sure about that?
This movie is so overcrowded that the filmmakers had to drop the idea of having Robin for the second time. Despite hiring actor Marilyn Wayans to play the role, they ended up cutting the character from the script before shooting started. As for the plot, much of it seems to be inspired by 2 episodes of the original Batman 60s show, titled Dishonour the Penguin and Dishonour the Penguin, in which the Penguin runs for mayor and attempts to frame Batman and Robin. This does ultimately lead to the film's best action sequence, where Batman is trapped in the Batmobile while Penguin autopilots it into the packed streets of Gotham. This is a terrific sequence, very well put together, mixing great practical stunts and miniature work. On a technical level, the film is first rate, and the Batman fight scenes are a step up from the original, thanks to the redesigned Batsuit, which allowed for better movement. Danny DeVito gives a monstrous, but somewhat sympathetic appeal to his performance as the Penguin. While he's mostly known for comedy, this movie proves what a great dramatic actor he really is. Despite the horrible things Penguin does, he's ultimately a character that was discarded due to his appearance, and you do end up feeling a little sorry for him. I still prefer Burgess Meredith's version of the Penguin, though. Michelle Pfeiffer is absolutely incredible in the role of Catwoman. Despite her transformation from nerdy secretary to full-on leather-suited sex bomb making literally no sense, she survives falling from a tall building because of magic cats licking her. The character does seem to flip-flop from being major villain to anti-hero several times throughout the movie, but that's always been the case with the character in the comics. Michael Keaton delivers another solid performance as Batman and Bruce Wayne, but like I said earlier, he doesn't really get to do very much but react to things going on around him. I do think it's pretty neat that both Bruce Wayne and Selina Kyle show up to a fancy dress party wearing just normal clothes. It's a subtle reminder that Batman and Catwoman are these characters' true identities. Bruce Wayne and Selina Kyle are just disguises. Overall, Batman Returns is a perfectly entertaining superhero adventure. It has a dark, gothic fantasy appeal that sets it apart from other films of its genre, but I think it's just a significant step down from the first film, in my opinion. On its release in June 1992, Batman Returns was met with the kind of hype and fanfare not seen since the release of the original film in 1989. After the huge amount of money that the first film made at the box office due to its unique and innovative marketing, this was prioritized for Batman Returns. Over $100 million was spent on marketing, including $20 million by Warner Brothers for commercials and trailers, and $60 million by merchandising partners such as McDonald's. McDonald's converted 9,000 outlets into Gotham City restaurants, offering Batman-themed packaging and a cup lid which doubled as a Viking disc. Television advertisements featured Batman and Catwoman fighting over a can of Diet Coke, and the Penguin and its penguins promoted choice hotels. All this advertising would backfire, however, on the film's release in cinemas. As for its reception from mainstream critics, many of them took note that Returns was more of a personal film for Tim Burton than the original, given its more fantastical tone and overall weirdness. Kenneth Turan of the Los Angeles Times said it was a cheerless, brooding, but always visually inventive film, more or less what you might expect if Ingmar Bergman had directed The Addams Family. Janet Maslin of The Guardian said Batman Returns resembles nothing so much as a blacker, spikier, less focused version of a Disney animation feature made flesh. The film opened on June 19th at number 1 at the box office to a huge $45 million, beating the opening weekend of $42 million set by the original Batman. However, The dark and violent content had a polarizing effect on family audiences, with the perception by many parent groups that the movie was too scary and disgusting to small children, not to mention the rather overt sexual content.
I'd like to fill her void.
Because of this, and despite the film's record-breaking opening, the film failed to sustain the momentum of the original Batman, eventually grossing $266.6 million on an $80 million budget. Despite the initial controversy and mixed reactions, Batman Returns has gained a cult following and is often regarded as one of the most artistically ambitious superhero films ever made. The Batman director Matt Reeves and the film star Robert Pattinson described Returns as their favourite Batman film. Despite underperforming compared to the original film, Batman Returns was still profitable, and plans were already underway for another sequel. However, Tim Burton soon got the idea from the studio that his vision was not what they wanted anymore.
You don't want me to make another one, do you? And they go, no. And I just said, no, I know you did. And so we just stopped it right there.
Therefore, the creative team and the overall direction of the franchise would go in a new, lighter direction. The question was, how far would be too far? Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, then please give it a like. Consider subscribing if you haven't done so already. Share it with your friends. Click the bell for notifications. Let me know your thoughts on Batman Returns in the comments below. And see you in part 3 of this series. Bye for now.